Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm doing a video on Wagyu beef. And why is that is because there was some discussion on my channel. I was recently at Gordon Ramsay Steak in Richmond, talked about their beautiful Wagyu steak. And people were saying, well, that's not really Wagyu because it's from America. So I thought I'd kind of go through this because it is a very interesting topic. And I think I was really interested not only in the food, but actually the history and more information about the food. So let's talk about Wagyu. So Wagyu is a collective name for four principal breeds of beef cattle. Wagyu is actually just a common term. So wa means Japanese and gu means cow. So essentially it means Japanese cow or Japanese cattle. A lot of people say, well, it's got to be from Wagyu, Japanese Wagyu, it's got to be from Japan. That's correct. But in fact, early in the early 20th century, there was crossbreeding of Japanese cows and with imported stock mostly from Europe. And what they found was that at a certain point, they stopped that because they weren't getting the right marbling. So nowadays, all the cows or the Wagyu cows in Japan are actually pure breeds, but the pure breed is actually historically a crossbreed, if that makes any sense. So they were crossbred with imported cows in the early 20th century. I think there are two regions that have not like pure breed Wagyu cows, but generally speaking, those are not actually used for eating. What is the feature about Wagyu beef that's so kind of enticing? It's the marbling. And what happens is that with Wagyu beef from Japan, there are streaks of fat that exist within the meats. If you look at a Wagyu beef steak, you'll see it doesn't even look like a regular steak. It's almost like whitish. It's almost pink because it's covered with so much white fat. It's not, you don't see the red meat as much. Japanese Wagyu breeds, they're known for monosaturated fatty acids. And those generally, so normal fat, beef fat, melts at between 40 to 50 degrees Celsius. But this monosaturated fatty acids that are contained in Wagyu beef have a lower melting point, almost close to 30 degrees Celsius, which is a lot near room temperature or that of butter. And therefore, the fat actually melts sooner. So when it hits your mouth is probably not as hot as 40 or 50 degrees, but it's probably closer to 30. And when it hits your mouth, that kind of fat, it just melts. And that's why you have this tenderness and this sensation that it's like butter in your mouth. Wagyu beef from Japan is known to have a aroma, and it's a kind of a complex aroma that has a scientific component to it. It's produced from lactones, and lactones are actually found in peaches and coconuts, and their aroma increases when it's heated. In 2007, the Japanese government distinguished that there's really four breeds of Wagyu. They are the Japanese black, the Japanese brown or red, the Japanese polled, and the Japanese shorthorn. But in essence, it's really the Japanese black breed. That accounts for like 97% of all Wagyu raised in Japan, and that's probably what most people eat. What is the difference between Wagyu from Japan and Wagyu from any else place? It's two things. One is, generally speaking, it's not a crossbred breed, so it's a Japanese Wagyu cow. But again, knowing that in the earlier 20th century, they did crossbreed it. So you can say it is a whole breed for the last, I guess, good century. And the second thing is what they're fed. And so that makes a difference about their meat. And the real difference, what that outcome is that it's got extensive marbling. And that marbling, the fat actually melts at a lower temperature than most beef fat, and that's why you get this aroma and this taste. I have Wagyu grown outside of Japan, and a lot of subscribers will say, well, that's not really Wagyu, which is true, I think, in the technical term, because Wagyu beef technically has to be Japanese cows from the essentially Japanese black beef. So I guess you could, and there are producers in the US, Australia, and Canada that may have whole breeds. That is a Japanese cow that is come here. But again, that will probably not have the same taste as Wagyu beef because it's not has the same feed. American, Canadian, and Australian Wagyu is crossbred with the American Angus cow stock. And so the meat should be, I guess, technically marketed as American style Kobe beef or American style Wagyu, but they just say it's Wagyu. So that's why some subscribers say that's not correct. Then you have American Wagyu that's crossbred with the American Angus beef. You get more like a steak. And so these are more hearty. They will be more beefy than Japanese Wagyu, and they will have less marbling. The American Wagyu is essentially Angus beef with a little bit of marbling. So it's kind of more like a steak. Japanese Wagyu is, again, mostly purebred, the black cow. It is more rich, it's buttery and tender, and it's got really extensive marbling. And therefore, it's almost impossible. Like I've tried it before. An 8-ounce Wagyu beef, Japanese Wagyu beef, is almost impossible to eat. That's almost like eating 25 ounces of regular steak. And so when you get a Wagyu and you're eating 12 ounces, it's almost impossible, unless you're a really big eater, that's really Japanese Wagyu, because it's just, to eat Japanese Wagyu, that would be a lot because the marbling is so high and the fat content is so high. The last thing I want to talk about is the kind of grades of Wagyu. So if outside of Japan, they're not graded, but in Japanese, they're graded on the yield, how much they yield, the cow yields is graded on 3 levels, A, B, and C. And then the quality of meat is graded on levels from 1 to 5, 5 being the highest. Yield, it refers to the percentage of the edible meat from the cow or the carcass. The meat quality is determined by 4 criteria: marbling, meat color, firmness and texture, and then fat luster and quality. And again, so then you'd have that, there's 15 combinations. I guess the best would be A5, which you see a lot. So that would mean the most yielded cow and the best quality. Although I think, C5 should be the same too, because what do I care how much, I guess, meat comes out of the actual meat? I guess it's a bigger cow. Maybe it's better that way. But to me, the quality would be more important than yield. So anytime you see a 5, whether it be A5, B5, or C5, probably to me, that's better than an A1. So hopefully this gives you some understanding or some idea about Wagyu beef and clarify some matters. Again, I don't profess to be an expert in Wagyu beef, but I think it's just interesting to know more about it. Hope you enjoyed this video. Until next time, happy eating.